First you have to take a hand cranked ferry across the river. That looks sturdy. And they pull you across, and then you end up on the other side. It's an interesting process. So here we are in Xunantunich, one of the older Mayan cities. In all honesty, we're not entirely sure when the city began. We do know that it was victorious in a series of battles in the 500s, and that it kind of reached its prime around the 900s at a time when a lot of the other places were declining. We're in one of the larger plazas in the middle. It's not one of the bigger cities, it's actually one of the smaller ones, but it stood above the Mopan River, which made it sort of overseer of all trade and goods running up and down the river. So it was excellent for commerce and trade. We're going to go over here and see what's beyond here. So sort of like a Genoa or a Venice of the Americas. As a result, it would absolutely stand above its own weight class in terms of power and strength and influence. And it would go on until much later and then just become abandoned. We're not entirely sure why, which tends to be a common concept when we talk about the Mayans. They just kind of disappeared. Not the people, but the civilization. This is going into Plaza A3. There are 34 main buildings in this area, most of which would have served a sort of ritual or religious or government function. All along here we see our different rooms. Rooms would be narrow and long because of their style of architecture. But this would be the beginnings of the city. Here we are at structure A16, which honestly means nothing to me except that as a reminder that these ones are all classified simply in numerical order as they go around and find what they find. One of the biggest things about his is this guy right here. This is a stele, or a large specifically cut stone, which often would have some sort of depiction on it or some sort of writing. However, this one, I don't know if there was anything on it or not, because many of them didn't have a thing. The other thing is this stone here, which I'm going to assume, given its central location in this little place, would have been a offering stone or a ritual stone. And while this is cool, it's actually not the main piece that becomes interesting. The major structure here is this guy, El Castillo, or the castle. And if you get around to Mayan ruins, you find a lot of castillos because it was a convenient name. A large central structure that was made of stone and looked quite impressive and sturdy would have been called a castle by the conquistadors that came in and named most of these pieces. Its original name is gone. Thank you, birds. Its original name is gone, much the same way that the original name for Xunantunich is gone. Xunantunich itself is named, although the Mayan, the English definition of that name is Stone Woman. And why is it called Stone Woman? Because there have been multiple reported sightings of a woman with fiery red eyes that would walk up along the stone steps and into a stone wall. And while I don't see her around right now, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But that's where she got her name. That's where this entire place got its name from, was from a ghost sighting. What was it originally called? We're not entirely sure. But we're going to call it Xunantunich for now. And so they would name these things. Castillo is it's the second tallest building in Belize. It's 144 feet high. It's a fair bit of a climb, but you can climb it, and from the top you can see Guatemala, because we're only about less than 2 kilometers away from the border. But it was the major center for proclamations, for rituals, for all sorts of things. And the leader and the high priest would be up there addressing all the people down in this central plaza. Okay. Xunantunich at its height would have roughly a population of about 20,000 people. Obviously, they weren't all in this tiny cluster of buildings, because what we see as jungle would have been a lot of built up areas, kind of like suburbs, I guess, would be a good way of calling it. But buildings and smaller villages that would sit in the shadow of Xunantunich and be part of the city. And the acoustics are such that from the very top, the leader would come out and his voice would ring clear all the way across this central plaza, which is just a wonder of acoustics, and something that we're going to see quite often when it comes to Mayan structures, Mayan plazas, Mayan temples. One other thing to notice is, how do I put this? These were built one on top of another on top of another. This building started off as a small altar right in the heart of all this. And then as the city got bigger, the building got bigger, because they would build another layer on top, on top, on top. In fact, just to give you an idea of how this works, if I'm going to get up here just a bit, if I can. Oh, and just a quick side note. Again, tall steps. So you really have to bring your knee up. You really have to bend your body. And you really have to sort of bow your head as you climb these steep steps. But if I was to turn around and take a look at this plaza, they've done a couple of digs, and they found out that this is actually the 6th level of plaza, that there's at least 5 underneath. So they were building on top of each other, and on top of each other, and on top of each other, and all of a sudden this whole place would be raised more and more as time goes on. Now, that obviously causes a problem for archaeologists and historians, because, well, where do you stop digging? Do you leave it at the 6th plaza? You go down to the 5th or the 4th or the 3rd? And if you stop, what artifacts or information are you missing because you're not going deep enough? Not to mention, how much money would it take to properly dig out a plaza this size 4 or 5 times? Just some interesting thoughts. So we're going to wander over here and see if we can't go up for a climb. And we'll see you soon. So we're most of the way up, not quite there yet, but I want to point something out that's on the east and west sides of the Castillo, of the temple. And these are the friezes. These are the murals, the stonework that used to adorn the sides of the temple. Now, this is not actual stonework. This is fiberglass, and it's pushed out 1.5 meters past the actual stonework, which is buried underneath for preservation. But this gives us a really good idea of what we would have seen if we had been here 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. You'll notice the wide variety of figures and gods up here. What have we got? Well, we've got a number of important pieces. We have our moon gods. We have our tree of life, or the world tree, sorry, up there, and we have 4 bacabs. Bacabs are sky bearers, and they would hold up the sky, hold up the universe, and were often placed underneath the throne of a ruler to show that, as a divinity or as a esteemed figure, he would have one of these holding him up as well. The moons are the things you can see, small pieces. They look like U's. I'll just focus in on one of them there. Our moon symbols. Up to our world tree. Back. Now, which one is Venus? I can't honestly tell you. But it's quite a piece, and we have roughly the same thing on the other side. Hopefully we'll be able to take a look at that as well. But these would be the friezes. This would be the stonework that we would have seen if we had been here during its prime. And as a quick note, this whole sort of rough fill probably wouldn't have been what we were looking at, but more like the dressed stone at the very base, which would have reached its way all the way up. However, with the passage of time, this is what we've got left. Nothing in particular to look at here. Perhaps the little rooms, little areas in here that we see. I just wanted to take you for a walk around the building. I'll take a look down. We're not at the top, but this is what we would see from most of the way up to the top of the temple. Let's continue this walk and just see what we've got. I love the dress stone, the really smooth stone that they did to line the walls. A lot of it's been changed out, but that's life. Alright, and here we are out there, Guatemala. We see all the pieces in the back. Imagine this as a nice commanding view of the entire region. You could look out, you could see troop movements, you could see trade movements, you could see your people working in the fields, because there wouldn't be quite as much forestry here. This was truly a commanding presence. And now, it's just an amazing view. Alright, we're going to keep exploring, and we'll catch you in a bit. Here's the western frieze. It's a little bit different than the eastern one. Got slightly different pieces. However, as it is quite incomplete, we'll just take a look. Alright, back to where we were. And here we are looking out over the edge, down at those other peons below. Imagine being the ruler from way up here, looking down upon your figures and out across the countryside, being the master of, well, most all of your domain. Right? Like we said, Xunantunich wasn't the biggest city-state, but it was one of the more powerful ones because of its wealth and its trade. And its ruler would have been quite a figure. Now they say that it would be really easy for me to talk from here and have the people down below hear me. I'm trying just to talk to you to not interrupt the two guides down there. But here we are looking over Plaza A1, Plaza A2, and Plaza A3 in the back, right by that smaller one. A couple of forest fires in the back. But imagine being up here, imagine doing your rituals, giving pronouncements, looking down upon your people. This is truly a ruler's location, and the second tallest building in Belize deserves a bit of process. 40 meters, 144 feet. It is quite a drop. This kind of building wishes I had come with a guide. You can see its foundations. There's a room over here, a pair of wooden stakes, but then there's these two pillars. So sort of an archway or some sort of raised pillared area here. And then I step up into the next room. There's a bench over there. And it's still high up on the temple complex. So what was that part all about? What was this building for? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they do. But I won't know for now. But I thought I'd show it to you and just sort of say that sometimes trying to understand or take a look at things and wonder what they're about is really important. Now, projecting what you think from a modern Western point of view what it would be can be dangerous. But as long as you acknowledge that all your ideas are guesses, it's not such a bad idea. Well, the rain has started, so it's going to be a slightly different process, but just wanted to show you right here our little ball court. A little bit smaller than the one in Campeche, but still a place where you would have your nightly entertainment. This, however, is what I want to show you. And I'm trying to remember the name, and it's not coming to me. I guess I'll have to add it in a little bit later. But this was a stele that they found when they were actually looking for something else. They were using dynamite to dig out to one area, and it blasted open something other, and they found this. This is the record of the second female king, or the second female ruler of the city-state. And I'm trying to remember her name. I don't remember what it is, but you can see all of the inscriptions, all the hieroglyphs, basically petroglyphs, that were adorning this stele and telling her story. And it's just put out here on display so that you can take a look at what was inside this piece here as they were doing their dig. Right, there's not much to see down there at the moment, or at least I don't think there is. Wonder if I can get my phone in there. But let's see what we can do. Yeah. But there we are. This is Plaza A2. Again in Xunantunich. Alright.